So, you've just been awoken by the Necronomicon Ex Mortis and you're all wondering like, what are these crazy powers I have? Well, I'm here to take you from hell to having a hell of a time. That's right, hello everyone, and welcome to a video that's all about getting the hang of playing as the Kandarian Demon. Because let's face it, the tutorial doesn't do an amazing job of explaining leveling up, the flow of the game, or really much of anything else. It's more of a, this is how you do all the basic demon functions, while this video will be more about how to be a successful demon player on a base level. We're going to talk about early game, mid game, and late game goals and strategies to break things down and make playing the demon a bit less daunting and frustrating and a lot more fun. My hope is that after you watch this video, you'll go from 0 to smothering survivors' faces in your gross demon boobas in no time. Delightful! Let's begin. First, let's talk about the early game. For ease of understanding, when I talk about the early game, I'm talking about the phase of the match where the survivors are looking for the map pieces. If you're coming straight from the tutorial into a match, the first thing you're probably saying to yourself is, what the hell, I don't actually have any abilities at all. When the match starts, you've basically got nothing except for your active ability, your demon dash, and the ability to place traps. So your goal is to level up as fast as possible to gain all the tools that you need to win. You do this by grabbing infernal energy, placing scare traps, trapping chests, and most optimally by actually finding and interacting with the survivors. Forcing the survivors to trigger traps, scaring them, possessing them, doing damage to them, and for the biggest chunks, downing and or killing them. You don't want to waste any time as the demon though, and because you have no idea where the survivors are at the start, the most stable strategy is simply to fly around collecting infernal energy and placing as many traps as possible. Any trap will do, although trapping a chest does give you the most experience. The easiest place to find places to plant traps is at any named location on the map, especially around structures. If you find yourself out of energy frequently, sometimes flying to the next adjacent location, picking up energy along the way, is the best way to maximize the efficiency of your time while allowing yourself to head toward more experience gain. Keep an eye out though. If the survivors slip up by making noise, hopping in a vehicle, or letting their fear get too high, you'll be notified where they are, and as I mentioned before, messing with the survivors is by far the fastest way to level. You'll want to head over to them quickly and simply be the demonic parasite that you are. If you are having trouble finding the survivors, a good thing to do is maybe just set yourself up for the mid-game by planting a lot of traps around the objectives that you know, which are the Lost Pages and the Kandarian Dagger. If you happen to spawn near either the Dagger or the Lost Pages, these are pretty much the best places to go early on to start placing your traps and get ready for the mid-game. The mid-game, for clarity's sake, is what I refer to when I'm talking about the phase after the map has been collected, and the survivor's goal is to take control of the Lost Pages and the Kandarian Dagger. Optimally at this point, you've already hit level 10, because having your boss for these phases is very important for not only potentially ending the match, but also to slingshot your experience gain towards where it needs to be if things happen to progress to the end game. If you happen to be slightly underleveled here because RNG was on those pesky survivors' side, and the map pieces were all close together, don't panic. You can often come back very hard during the first event phase at either the Pages or the Dagger, because you gain infernal energy very quickly, and obviously the survivors are mostly lumped together for you to mess with. It's especially helpful if during the early game you've pre-trapped these objectives a bit, so this can also serve as much needed time to get your levels up to where they should be. Your goal during this phase, and always, but especially during this phase, is to set up situations where you can overwhelm the survivors with units and things they need to focus on. A basic example of this is if you've got your scare traps down, especially near the objective, you've pre-placed some proximity traps, and you've collected enough infernal energy to not only spawn an elite after your traps are triggered, but also a boss. AoE survivor damage in this game is very minimal, almost non-existent, so masses of your units are always a great base level strategy for picking groups apart, and your boss, on top of these distractions, is often enough oomph to push the survivors over the edge into damnation. Did my zap kill them? Holy moly. In the end game, the final stage where things are getting a bit dire and the Dark Ones themselves are at risk, your strategy is roughly the same as the mid game, only this time you've got much more resources. The main difference in this scenario is that now the survivors have the threat of the coming storm and the challenge of dealing with the Dark One's projectiles on top of whatever else you can throw at them. Like the other phases, your infernal energy gain is high, and your goal is to overwhelm the survivors with distractions while they attempt to complete their goal of banishing your dark brethren. Optimally at this point in the game, you've also probably possessed some of the survivors to find out what gear they're rocking and to really kind of narrow down the target of who you want to be possessing in this last phase to make use of any potential legendary gear or high-level gear that they may have found. That's basically it as far as the general flow of the game is concerned and general strategy. From there, playing as the demon is about prioritizing certain abilities based on which character you've chosen, and then oftentimes moment-to-moment decisions where you attempt to take advantage of any amount of separation between their group to dive in and single out survivors that are unlucky or stupid enough to find themselves alone. In fights against their entire squad, your priority should always be to put as much pressure on the support players as possible, namely Cheryl, Evil Dead 1 Ash, or Pablo. The amazing and most fun thing about this game is that every match requires a different strategy based on the team you're fighting, the RNG of the equipment they find, and of course, which demon you're taking control of. Let me know if you liked this video and found it helpful. If enough people are interested, I'd love to go into some advanced demon strategies, character-specific tips and tricks, and/or different problem scenarios that require you to think on the fly. Until next time, guys, start swallowing some souls.
Pistol. Good to know. I'm gonna blow up on him if I can. He's dead. Dude.